Hey, welcome back to this series where I'm talking about the best actors and actresses by the decade in science fiction and fantasy content. I'm up to the 1990s today, and Zach's along for the ride here. He gets to react live. He hasn't seen the list.
Mhm.
He'll decide if I'm out of my mind in where I've put these, and then, of course, you can decide too. So come along and watch.
We'll see. So hi there, and welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about sci-fi, fantasy, all those good things that we know and love. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Glad to have you with us today for just a fun conversation about some of the best science fiction and fantasy actors and actresses out there and the great roles they've played. If you enjoy this episode, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Thanks. Zach, it's nice to get together with you and do some
Good to
content
be
here. Yeah. You drinking anything today?
It's still a little early for me, so I'm just working on some coffee.
Oh, good for you. I'm drinking a little Sauvignon Blanc because I was traveling all week for work and I don't drink when I travel. So I'm catching up.
That's fair. That's
and
fair.
And it is 5 o'clock somewhere.
Somewhere.
It's at least afternoon here, so I'm not a morning drinker.
It is closer to 5 o'clock for me than it is for you.
That is true. Well, I've got a list here talking about the 1990s, a decade that you did see.
Barely.
Yeah. But the content, the movies, the TV shows of the 90s are recent enough that I think you'll have heard of most of these. Many of them you've seen in video,
Look,
they're still around. You can stream things anywhere.
At the end of the day, if I haven't seen any from this section, it's your fault.
And so I'll say, because you've seen a lot of these, it's my credit. I did a good job bringing you into culture and letting you see really good science fiction and fantasy shows. So our format today, everybody, again, I'm going to throw these at Zach, starting at the bottom, moving on up, and see what he thinks. Does he believe they belong on a list of the best? I've got 16 to share because I'm trying to create a top 10, and there's just too many that I want to talk about. They really deserve to be mentioned, but I'm not going to talk long about any of them.
You know, I would give you crap about 16. It's a weird number. But the Cosmere fan in me is just totally okay with it. 16's a fine number. Let's go with 16.
Okay, there you go. And consider, here's the first one. If I had not done 16, this guy doesn't make the cut. Kurt Russell.
Who?
Oh, no. Okay, this was the one you might actually not know very well, but please tell me you're kidding. Oh, he's not kidding.
Oh, I'm bad at people's names. You start giving me roles, I might actually pull it out.
Okay, Kurt Russell stars in 1994 in the movie Stargate, which was what the show was based on. He plays Colonel Jack O'Neill in the movie version.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then he also plays Snake Plissken in Escape from LA, which was the sequel to Escape from New York, big dystopian future sci-fi action movies. This was in 1996. And then he plays Soldier in 1998 as Sergeant Todd 3465, basically a program cyborg kind of thing. It's a very cool science fiction movie. It's just those three. He did a lot of other movies, but in these genres, just these three. And I got crap for leaving him off my 80s list because he had some things there too. And I'm like, well, there wasn't really enough. So I couldn't do it again. Okay, I had to put him on.
You could have left him off. I've seen Stargate. I don't remember it very well because I definitely just watched it to go, hey, I watched all these Stargate show things. I should watch the movie it's based off at some point. I barely remember it. I've never heard of the other two.
Okay.
Showing my age, sorry.
Let me get you a little farther back. Did you ever, from the 70s, from the 80s, did you ever watch The Thing?
I know of it. I never watched it. No.
Yeah, Kurt Russell stars in that too.
Nope.
Yeah, okay.
He's been in things that I know of and things I haven't, and a couple I've seen, but no, I'm missing on that one.
Okay, well, to be honest, Kurt Russell is not the biggest of stars in my mind. That's actually how he got left off the 80s list. 90s. So he's on here because fans missed him. But number 15, you'll definitely know. Michael J. Fox.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
Yeah. So we've got Back to the Future Part 3. The first two were in the 80s, and he's on my 80s list. He's
Mhm.
higher on the 80s list.
Makes sense.
But the final one is 1990, playing Marty McFly.
Hmm.
But he goes on to do a number of other interesting things in these genres in the 90s. He did an episode of Tales from the Crypt, which was
Okay.
an HBO episodic show, horror, fantasy, paranormal stuff. So he plays in season 1, episode 3. So very early. This was HBO. This is why I got HBO back then. I needed to see Tales from the Crypt.
Early HBO.
Yeah. And it's the episode is The Trap, where he plays the prosecutor. He also did the movie The Frighteners, 1996. He's the leading role, Frank Bannister. You've never heard of it. You have heard of Mars Attacks,
Mars Attacks is definitely there. That was one where I was
1996
calling. I'm
also.
like, I think that's the 90s.
Jason Stone, he plays in that. He's the whole movie is a hilarious spoof of old classic sci-fi. It was fun.
Tell me, was Teen Wolf the 90s or was that earlier?
80s, and that's on the 80s list. All he got on the 80s was Back to the Future and Teen Wolf. That's what got him there.
But
Teen
they were
Wolf
big
was
ones.
quirky and weird, but it was worthy. One more thing in the 90s for him, though, is Stuart Little.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
the voice of Stuart Little in the 1999 movie.
Kind of weird to include
watched
that on
that.
this list. It's technically true, but that doesn't feel like it belongs on a sci-fi. Like,
it's
sci-fi
sci-fi
fantasy?
and fantasy. Is not
It is.
Stuart Little fantasy? Come on.
Technically speaking, you're
Not sword
right.
and sorcery, but it's
It
fantasy.
just feels weird to be like, yeah, this is sci-fi, or yeah, this is fantasy. Or you're not wrong. I would never think of it.
Well, there you go. Number 14 on the list, Pierce Brosnan. So we've got 1995 GoldenEye, so the James Bond
yeah.
film, which, it's an action spy thriller, but there's so many elements of fantasy in these Bond movies. They do things that are completely impossible. Fantasy, sci-fi with the gadgets, so
It's a little
adjacent.
fantastical. Okay.
He's also in Mars Attacks, Professor Donald Kessler. 1997, Dante's Peak, that sci-fi disaster
doomsday
movie
kind of thing, right?
What's that?
That's a disaster doomsday kind of film, right?
Yeah, when the volcano goes off.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. I've seen that, I think.
Your mother and I really like that movie. 2 more Bond films, because this was his Bond period.
This is Bond.
So Tomorrow Never Dies in 97, and The World Is Not Enough in 1999. So, again, Brosnan did more things in the 90s. These are the ones, the top 5 that fall in these genres.
So in a way, he's a big name of the 90s that had a couple of bigger things in these genres as well.
Yeah. And of course, his James Bond stuff was the biggest.
He's not the best James Bond, but some people would disagree with that statement.
I really liked him as James Bond. He's definitely
I like
high
My
up
Generation. Daniel Craig's mine. Sorry.
Daniel Craig's okay. They're all better than Roger Moore.
There's that.
Okay. Number 13, quirky one. Tim Allen.
Okay.
Now, Tim Allen primarily makes it for the last thing on my list, but I've got 4 things. First, 1994, The Santa Claus.
That's that old?
It is.
I figured it would be like 98, 99.
But then 95 and 99, you've got Toy Story and Toy Story 2. He's Buzz Lightyear. Okay, yeah. He's the voice. So those are big movies, very successful.
Those are actually documentaries. I don't know if you know this.
But 99, he also has Galaxy Quest.
Correct.
Jason Nesmith, Commander, Peter Quincy Taggart. I love the heck out of that movie. It is so fun, especially as a Trekkie. Mm-hmm. It just hits all the vibes. So that's why he's 13 on my list. There's still a lot bigger, better credentials. A lot of people above. But he deserves to be here. Yes?
That's fun. I'm down with that.
Number 12 on my list doesn't have as many credits, but he's a guy that's just a workman. You always see him in all sorts of places. He's usually not the leading character. Bill Paxton. Okay, Bill Paxton has a role in Predator 2 in 1990.
Okay.
He's also on that Tales from the Crypt episodic thing. He has a episode in 93.
Okay.
But his biggest movie as a leading man is in 96, Twister. He
Oh,
plays Bill
okay.
Harding. That's where he shines bigger and brighter than anything he ever does.
I was sitting here for a bit trying to be like, who is this? Who is this? Who is this? But I know that one, and that one is actually, it sticks in my brain. I don't know why
it was
it does.
iconic for the 90s. It was one of those big films everybody went and saw.
There's something about a belt being strong enough to hold you through it that just, it really sticks, you know? That was good, genuine leather.
Not just a science fiction adventure movie, it's also fantasy. Yes. And I like Bill Paxton. And he's got a lot of credits across the decades in science fiction and fantasy. I mean, he's in the original Terminator. The group of punks that the Terminator goes up to and gets clothes from right at the beginning. Bill Paxton is one of those guys. He was basically nobody back then. But now I go back and watch the movie. And it's Bill Paxton. Yeah.
All right.
Speaking of the Terminator, number 11 on my list is Linda Hamilton.
Okay.
She has 3 key roles in the 90s in this genre. Again, did other things, but 1990, Mr. Destiny. She plays Ellen Burroughs. It's a movie not a lot of people have heard about.
I haven't.
But it's in this genre. Now, you have heard of the second one in 1991, Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Yes, I have definitely heard of that one.
She's much bigger and bolder in T2 than in the Terminator. Terminator, helpless woman in distress, for most of that movie. Judgment Day, she's a whole nother thing. And then Dante's Peak in 97. She's the co-lead with Pierce Brosnan in that disaster movie that I really like.
As you stated, it's one you really like. It gets extra points.
Yeah. In the past, we've talked about Linda Hamilton, and you're like, yeah, she's not that much, really.
I mean, what was this, 11 spot?
Yes.
For the 90s? Like, that feels fair. It wouldn't be top 3, and it's not in other decades. But here, for this, no, that's fair.
Okay. Number 10 on the list. So now, top 10. Here's the ones that would have made it, even if I'd cut all the rest out.
Okay.
Sir Patrick Stewart.
All the way down at 10.
Yeah, that tells you the quality of what's coming.
It also tells me is what I'm thinking of for Patrick Stewart a little bit around the 90s, like on either side. We get some thousands, we get some 80s, and there's not a lot that's in the 90s.
Perhaps. So Star Trek The Next Generation, its original run was 87 and 94. So he's in the 80s list because of this. He's also in the 90s list.
Mm-hmm.
He also had a very small cameo in Robin Hood Men in Tights in 1993. He comes in at the end as King Richard, but it's perfect. It's like, yes, that's King Richard. Then, of course, we got the movies for Star Trek The Next Generation. So we had Generations in 94, First Contact in 96, and Insurrection in 98. So some big blockbuster Star Trek films.
Mm-hmm.
But associated with it, there's 2 other appearances. One is a TV movie that I'd never heard of until I was doing the research. And then I checked it out and went, well, this is kind of quirky. It might have been pretty good. The Canterville Ghost in 1996. He plays the ghost, Sir Simon de Canterville, and it's a major role of the film. So I'm like, okay, cool.
Maybe we'll check it out.
The other is also a TV movie that I have seen, and it's excellent. 1999, A Christmas Carol, when he plays Ebenezer Scrooge. Tell me you've seen that one.
I have seen it.
Yes, because that was really well received and pretty much gets replayed on some channel every Christmas now.
And that's the thing. I've seen it. I definitely didn't see it then. Like you said, it was 99.
You were alive for this one.
Probably was alive for this one. I certainly didn't see it when it came out.
But he is such an excellent Ebenezer Scrooge. That's how he makes it number 10. All of that. And key, it's not just Captain Jean-Luc Picard, which he does brilliantly.
But that is a portion.
Oh, that's a huge part.
Then use other stuff to just kind of be like, he's doing other things.
Yeah. And, it should also be noted, this was Star Trek The Next Generation was episodic television back when they were doing, seasons that were 22 to 26 episodes long. Long days of filming, getting a new one out every week. Not easy to do. not easy to squeeze something else in.
Mm-hmm.
So these other things he did, the Canterville Ghosts, Christmas Carol, they're after. That's done. Robin Hood Men in Tights, he squeezed in while still doing Next Generation, but again, cameo. So it makes sense.
What I want to give Sir Patrick Stewart here, because I think he deserves it, he may not be very super high on this specific list, but I'd be willing to bet he's going to be one of the actors that appears on the most of these decades lists.
You could be right there. Hot take for those of you watching this now. Zach and I plan to record a bunch of these today, so we may exactly talk about these lists. He does not know any of these lists
I
in
have
advance.
no clue.
Number 9 is an actor I'm not sure you will know.
Oh, no.
If you don't, it's not my fault. You just should have found this person.
It's your fault. Who is it?
What's Rachel's degree in?
Her first one?
Yes.
Radio, television, and film.
Exactly. She definitely knows his name. And if you don't, she has failed. We'll just say that.
I don't have a lot of time to watch a lot of things nowadays. Who is it?
Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman.
Look at me in my two human eyes. Ask me again if I know who Gary Oldman is. Yes, I know who Gary Oldman is.
Okay, thank goodness. Thank goodness. You know him from Harry Potter, right?
I know him from Harry Potter. I know him as... Isn't Gary Oldman Commissioner Gordon in the Batman movies?
He has done so much. And
he's
comedic, action, serious dramas.
No, he's done lots of things. And
in the 90s, there's 3 that hit for these genres. We've got Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992.
Yep.
We've got The Fifth Element, where he plays Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zora. Zora.
No, I haven't actually seen The Fifth Element. That one's on me.
There, Zorg. I had to double check my spelling. I have seen it way back in 97 when it came out. It's a Bruce Willis flick primarily, but Gary Oldman has a prominent role in it. It's very good. And then Lost in Space, 1998. He plays Dr. Zachary Smith, who's basically the comedic bad guy. Although they didn't lead as much into the comedy, they made it a little more serious for the movie version.
Possibly, weirdly enough, the one from the 90s here that I know best is actually Dracula.
It's a good movie. He looks weird when he's Dracula in this one.
Sure.
The makeup is like over the top strange, but a really good movie.
It came up recently because Rich and I did go see Nosferatu.
I have not seen that yet.
It was pretty good.
Is it good? I do plan to see it.
Well acted. Well done.
Nice. All right. Number 8, one of my favorite actors, Liam Neeson.
We love Liam Neeson.
He has 3 films that hit. He, again, did a lot of stuff, but 3 that fit fantasy and science fiction. In 1990, he did Darkman, which is it's like a dark horse for films. A lot of people haven't even heard of it, but it was very successful actually at the time. Spun off a number of sequels that aren't as good, but Darkman's great. He plays Darkman. Peyton Westlake is the character's actual name. Then Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, hits in 1999. And
I know
he
that
enters as Qui-Gon Jinn. Yeah,
and the exit as Qui-Gon Jinn.
Everything Star Wars got better, though, with Liam Neeson as part of the franchise. Come on.
Some people would be really offended that you said that.
What?
Not that Liam Neeson is a problem, but that you basically said, hey, those first 3 movies, they got better when you added The Phantom Menace.
No. That's not true. They got better when you add Liam Neeson.
Implied.
When you add Liam Neeson. Even when he says the words midichlorians. Even when he has to give that serious explanation about midichlorians, it's still better that Liam Neeson is there saying it. And then also in 1999, The Haunting, which is a spooky paranormal film. He plays Dr. David Merrow. Good movie. Liam Neeson, are you good with him being somewhere in this list?
As far as the 90s go, Phantom Menace is the only thing that actually was on my list there.
I think you'd like Darkman, except it's probably a little dated. Even though it's 1990, it feels 80s.
It's probably a little too dark of a movie, like not thematically, just like visually.
No. All right, number 7, is one I struggled where to put him on the list, and he might be too high. The problem is he's such a big star. Will Smith. He has 3 movies that
What were the 90s?
feature in
Yeah.
the 90s. 2 of them were huge hits and led into spin-offs afterwards.
So many of these I think of as like early 2000s, so maybe they are 90s. What do we have for Will Smith?
Independence Day,
Yep.
1996. One of the biggest films of the decade. Men in Black, 1997.
Okay, so that is that old.
Those are the 2 big ones. And then he also did Wild Wild West in 1999 that never should have been produced, but it's a Western science fiction flick with kind of a flair for comedic fantasy.
He might
plays
be a
Captain
little
James
high,
West.
but
What's really bad
I don't know.
is Wild Wild West was a movie version of an old TV serial that was really quite good with action and comedy and a little bit of techiness to it. And then they turn it into this movie, and he's playing Captain James West, the star of the show, and it just totally failed to capture anything that was good from the original series. But it fits the genre. So you see why I struggled where to put Will Smith?
Hey, to be fair, I definitely know who it is, and this time instead of seeing 1, I've seen 2 out of 3. So maybe he's in the right spot.
There's no way to leave Will Smith off this list because he nails it in Independence Day and Men in Black. Those are great shows. All right, number 6, though, above him, Robin Williams.
Okay.
He's got a lot of 90s action that falls into fantasy and sci-fi.
Yeah.
Hook in 1991, where he plays Peter Pan.
Yep.
Aladdin in 92, where he's the voice of the genie, and he makes that show. Jumanji in 1995, where he plays Alan Parrish, the adult version. 96, he plays Jack. Did you ever see Jack? He plays Jack Powell, who has an odd condition that he's physically growing much faster than normal. So he's Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Looking like Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Playing a 10-year-old in 5th grade.
Sorry, I don't know Jack.
Oh, you were just chomping at the bit, waiting for me to shut up so you could play that line. And guys, if you didn't get it, that's a whole thing. You don't know Jack. You got to look it up. Sorry. 1997, Flubber. Playing Professor Philip Brainerd, the lead role. And 1999, and you may not have heard of this one. Did you ever hear of Bicentennial Man?
I think I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
It's a science fiction flick. One of the more serious ones he's done. Plays Andrew Martin. Yeah.
But still, 4 out of 6 I've seen and love. So, no, he belongs way up here. Yeah.
Nice. Now, how about higher than him? Number 5, Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, that's fair.
In the 90s, we get Alien 3. Okay, Ellen Ripley again. We also have Snow White, A Tale of Terror in 97. She's back as Ellen Ripley in 97 for Alien Resurrection. But then 1999, Galaxy Quest. Her role, Gwen DeMarco, was just...
Look, at the end of the day, 80s on, you put her in top 5, I'm not upset.
There you
Period.
go. Alien, the original, is 1979. And I didn't put her in the 70s because even though that's awesome, it's not enough. But she was high in the 80s. And here she's back in the 90s. Yeah.
We'll see her again.
All right. Number 4. Another one of my favorite actors who's still pumping things out, even though I think he's in his 70s now. Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, yeah.
He made the 80s list, too. He's got some real big things. He was just kind of getting started in the 80s. But here I got 6 I'm going to mention. Usually I do 5. 6. Mr. Frost in 1990, where he plays Mr. Frost. And you've never heard of that movie?
I don't know that one. No.
Fair. You've heard of 93's Jurassic Park.
Absolutely. Seen it.
Dr.
Love
Ian
it.
Malcolm. 1995, Powder.
Nope.
Yeah, he plays Donald Ripley in that role. You have heard of that little flick in 96, Independence Day.
Yep.
David Levinson, one of the stars of the show. 97, he reprises Dr. Ian Malcolm in The Lost World, Jurassic Park.
2.
And then he does a voice part in 98's The Prince of Egypt. He's the voice of Aaron in that movie. Yeah. So that's a nice body of work.
In that period, definitely there. He's a little bit of a prolific actor in this genre. to your point of he's still pumping out stuff. Yeah, no, he was in the Wicked movie.
That's right. He plays the wizard, doesn't he?
Pretty sure. So stuff literally just came out, kind of stuff.
Yeah, still
He's
pumping stuff out.
Still doing stuff.
He's always good. You know, his parts on Independence Day and the Jurassic Park franchise are just, they're cultural icons now. I mean, everybody knows those roles.
There is something to be said about he used to be better than he is nowadays, just because nowadays he's kind of, hear me out, a lot of his roles, he's the same goofy guy that he just is. And he just is always that kind of weird, goofy guy in every role.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't get as much breadth and diversity. And every
Fair.
time you see him, it's like, it's Jeff Goldblum as Jeff Goldblum.
He's playing Jeff Goldblum. Yes.
Exactly. But back in the 90s, there was diversity and depth to more characters. And so absolutely deserving of this spot.
There you go. All right. Number 3 is one I wasn't sure. Him or Jeff Goldblum in number 3. I went with Keanu Reeves for number 3.
I think that works.
He's in Bram Stoker's Dracula in 92 as Jonathan Harker.
Mm-hmm.
He also in 95 has the sci-fi flick Johnny Mnemonic, playing the titular character. In 96, movie I'm sure you haven't heard of, Chain Reaction.
Nope.
Science fiction movie, serious film. Eddie Kasalovich. I don't know how to say it, but I've seen the movie. It's a good movie. 97, he plays in The Devil's Advocate as Kevin Lomax.
Okay.
That's an interesting movie. It's there's a little supernatural element into it. Otherwise, it's a very tense suspense drama. But 99, The Matrix, and he's Neo. You know, that's where that starts off, and boom, you know, he's putting in a body of work. And then The Matrix arrives. So, and his career just after that completely. So we're going to see more Keanu Reeves around.
We'll see him again.
Yeah. All right. So who do I have after that? Just 2 left.
Top 2.
Number 2, Bruce Willis.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen some of these films. I know you've seen
in the 90s. I don't know which ones I haven't.
In 92, he played a role in Death Becomes Her.
No clue.
Which is a fantasy comedy. And it's not like sword and sorcery fantasy. It's just a fantastical thing. A couple of women do something whereby they become immortal, but it doesn't mean they can't be killed. They just are dead now. It's comedic, and it had some big name actresses as well. But Bruce Willis is kind of like the straight man in the movie. Prominent role, Ernest Menville. That's the only one where his role is a little fluffy, though. The other 4, 12 Monkeys, hardcore science fiction with some fantasy, time travel. It's really all science fiction, actually.
I feel like... does this have something to do with space?
No.
Okay. I feel like I know something about this, but apparently not.
He plays James Cole, a convict in the future who is able to basically pay for his crime by volunteering to travel back in time to try to stop a pandemic that wipes out much of the world's population. And you get the whole experience of him trying to do it, and by the way, failing. So, yeah.
I mean, time travel, it gets funky.
It does. But in 97, he's the leading role in The Fifth Element. Gary Oldman was in it, you know. 98, Armageddon. Harry S. Stamper, one of his best roles. 99, another one of his best roles, The Sixth Sense.
Which I have seen, and it's not thanks to you.
But it's a good movie, is it not?
It's okay.
It's one that's
a lot better when you're blind.
It's fantastic the first time.
Except not really anymore. That's the problem with The Sixth Sense. And hear me out. It is such a cultural phenomena. It's so hard to find someone who's going to go into the movie blind and not know the twist, not know the whole thing about the movie. And so,
just in case, we won't tell them the twist.
Yeah, it's fine, but you will never get the experience of going to see it the first time truly ever again.
But I was watching films at that time. I saw it blind, and I got the shock at the end and went, that was awesome. And then you immediately want to watch it again to see all the clues you missed. They're all there. Yeah. Bruce Willis. And that's a tough one. A lot of these actors continue to work, again and again and again. Bruce Willis has a form of dementia, a disease that's degenerative, and he can no longer act.
Yeah, I believe he's like full retired.
He is. And it's sad. But in some way, one way or another, things stop for everybody. For the number one on the list, though, things have not stopped for this guy still. I don't know. Some people probably think they should, but Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's got some huge films. Now, he was big in the 80s list because that's where Conan and the Terminator, things got
so
started
what's
for
got
him.
him as your number one in the 90s?
Total Recall is a 1990 flick, science fiction. He's excellent as the leading role.
I'll be honest, I thought that was still 80s. I thought it was like 89.
91, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. 93, did you ever see The Last Action Hero?
Nope.
That is such a fun movie. He's just a movie character who ends up pulled out magically out of the picture into the real world, but he's still the action hero. It's funny. So Jack Slater is the role. 94, Junior. He plays Dr. Alex Hess. This is a comedy with strong fantastical elements because Arnold Schwarzenegger becomes pregnant.
Weird.
Through science. Yeah,
okay.
It's very funny. 97, he plays Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin. You did see that one, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a bad movie that
it's a bad movie
but it's fantastic.
And 99, kind of the apocalyptic movie End of Days. He plays Jericho Kane, basically kind of trying to stop the end of the world due to supernatural horror elements. Okay. It's not the greatest of movies, but it falls into the genre.
So here's my takeaway from your list.
Yeah.
1, you've got Schwarzenegger way too high. Okay. It's fine, but I don't think he has the strength in the 90s from what you're showing here.
Interesting.
To be up there compared to some of the others. Up there, sure. Number 1 feels too high. But number 2, I want to see more women on the list. I think we had 2 out of 16.
It's funny that you say that. Your mother and I watched all of my previous episodes last night. And if you go back to the 1950s, nearly half the people were women. Odd. When we're back in the 50s, where there was such a gender issue back then.
Absolutely.
Such a hard glass ceiling, it's pretty balanced. And since then, it's been many more men than women. It's true. So
I wonder if as we transition out of the 80s, 90s action hero-y vibes of these sci-fi movies, if maybe that'll change again. I don't know.
Maybe. Of course, I know the lists I've created.
You don't have to tell me.
We'll find out. All right, so what do you guys think of the list that I've laid out here for you today? Go ahead and put your thoughts down in the comments below and let us know. Like Zach, some things too high, some things too low. Let us know it. Anybody missing? I give you a top 16. Is there somebody who's been excluded and it's shameful? Put them in there. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you, and I will respond. Any last words, Zach?
Nope.
Okay. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.